Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Modern Practical Guide to a Positive Full Life with your host, your go to friend, which is me. Today, we're going to talk about conflict resolution with others. Now, there's going to be about four videos about making decisions or coming up with a solution. Um, and this one is mainly the first one I made is indecision, and that's really about being, uh, I guess, indifferent toward a decision. You have two decisions, you don't know which one to do, and you're just kind of indifferent, and you have to figure out which one is best for you. This is more about you know what's best for you typically, but somebody doesn't want what's best for you. They want what's best for them, and how to come to a mutual um, middle ground. And I'm going to start off with saying it's not always going to be a win-win. I think a lot of times win-win is seen as you get everything you want, they get everything you want. It is a type of win-win, but you're not going to get everything you want pretty much, and you have to come with that idea in mind, because I think if you don't, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to reach a middle ground, but you need this other person or other group or other individuals to be able to move forward. You can't do it on your own for whatever reason. Now, we're going to start off with some things to keep in mind in the bigger picture, and that's to show empathy throughout. And this is an underlining emotion, throughout this whole thing. And the main important part here is you're trying to understand the other person's perspective. The better you do this, the easier you're going to get to the solution. The easier you're going to be able to communicate your side of the problem. Um, so just remember that. And one of the things to keep in mind is, what is the point of all this, right? Are you trying to do XYZ? Then keep that in mind. You want what you want, they want what they want. But if the solution is to feed more children, then remember that. Because if you lose sight of that, you're going to get dragged down by, like, he said, she said, or you know he stole my idea. There's so many different things you could get bogged down on. So remember, what is the big picture here, and remember to be showing empathy throughout. um, Now, the next one has to do with time, and I'm probably going to do a time video, and this is going to be something you're going to see throughout the videos. But it's about time. What can you do right now to solve this? Now, if you're about to go into the meeting or you want to plan for it, that's great. So usually, if the meeting already happened, if the problem is past, then you can reflect on it and think about what you can learn from it, and then let it go. Learn from it and adjust, and then let it go. The If you can do something about it now, like going right before the meeting or during the meeting, you look at you can do that now. That's great. But if it's in the future, the way we look at time is best to plan for it. So if you need to do something, plan for it and then schedule it. And then when it's time to do it, you're ready and set to go. Now, if you need a plan in the sense of preparing something, what you're going to say, prepare what you think, and have it all written down, that's also a part of this. That's good. But you can do that now, and that's what brings us to now. So what can you do about it now? If you're in the meeting, you can address all these things. But if you're not, then what you can do right now is plan. You can write it down. Write down what is the goal, because in the moment, emotions and just past things will come up and you'll lose sight of it. So if you write it down now, it'll be really nice to have it there, and you could keep coming back to it. um, and right now, you're going to be looking at what is the problem, and assume there's a problem, of course, and what are all the parts that are part of the problem. Sometimes problems affect lots of different people, so you can write down who does it affect. Why is it a problem? And understanding that will really help you keep the big picture in mind. Why are we feeding children? Because children are hungry and they need nutrition, and that's a problem. Okay, so that's great. You can look at it from that, and that's just an example. I mean, it's true, but you focus on the problem and then work your way up from there. And if you can do that, you're going to have a good solution, because you're going to focus on, okay, maybe you're not going to use the food you wanted, uh, but you're going to get to the solution anyways. And that's the most important thing, right? Um, and it goes back to, there's more than one way of doing something. And as long as you're doing the bigger picture, it doesn't matter whose idea it was. So that keeps you grounded. Um, Now, the next part is this planning part, okay? And these are the three parts of this whole video. And the planning part is, what are the first steps, right? So if you're trying to, feed the hungry, then you can't just say that, and you can't just have that as your first step. You have to be like, what do I have to do first? Do I have to acquire food? Do I have to acquire contacts? and so on and so forth. So what are the first steps of getting there? Is it setting up a meeting? Is it figuring out, what is their ideal solution or something of the sort? You need to figure that out first. So what is the next step? And have this gradual steps to coming to the solution. And that's going to be different for everyone. So I can't tell you what that is, but you should know. And if you don't, then spend more time investigating, figuring that out. The other thing is, a lot of times, test your solution, right? Maybe you can, tell an expert or talk to someone who it affects and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? Now, if you can get that input and test out your idea in a small, controlled environment, that's going to be better for you. I think a lot of times people think they have to solve everything, and you don't have to. You can do it in a smaller number or smaller basis, and then figure out if that is a viable solution and move from there. Um, and the other thing is, if you come to the table being like, this is the thing I thought of, I've tried it, it's been showing really good results, that's going to have a lot more weight. Now, the other thing you have to remember is you have to ask other people for help. If you're not an expert in this, it's okay. It's about knowing where to go and knowing when to ask for help, and that's never a bad thing. It's always a way you can show an example of doing what is the right thing to do. Asking those it affects or asking those who know more. Now, this part is difficult if you don't reflect and go through your emotions, but what you want to do is base it on history, on logic. What has happened in the past? Agree on a time limit, and for this planning now, don't spend days doing all this. Say, I'm going to do it for an hour, and then be done with it, and then it's scheduled, and you're going to do it. That's it. Um, Other things you can do, which are part of other videos that helps, is consider what the best case is, and consider what's the worst case, and consider what's most likely going to happen. That'll help you invest your time wisely, because you're going to make sure that the worst thing doesn't piggyback too much, and you're going to invest most of your time on what's most likely going to happen, and then you're going to have motivation from what could happen, best case scenario. But again, address those emotions before you get there, because if you had a rivalry, if you had emotions, you're going to come up and you need to figure out how to process them and then let them go before you get to the next part, which is action. And this action is going to be more difficult because you're going to be at odds with somebody else. So focus on being genuine. Focus on what you truly believe. Don't just be right to be right. If you come at this from a genuine angle that's showing empathy, it's going to be very effective. And if it's not, try to find similarities. Sometimes people are very entrenched in their own ideas. So try to find a similarity, a thing where you come to common ground. Listen to them. And this was going to be part of the conversation video about a problem, like conversing with somebody about a problem. But many of the similar things are going to be said here. And that's listen to the problem of the other person. Don't interrupt them. And once they're done, ask them, if they're done. You really want to get the confirmation. Now, what you want to do, the first thing you want to do is don't say your idea. Now, you're going to just repeat in your own words what their idea was, or what their solution was, or what their point of view was, and ask for confirmation. So if they say XYZ, you say, XYZ in your own words and say, is that right? Now, once you have to get that right. If they say no, then say, can you elaborate? Can you explain? I'm sorry, I didn't understand it. Can we go over it? But again, there's all this time you're showing empathy and you're listening to understand. You're not listening to say your own point. You're not listening to figure out what they say wrong. You're listening to understand, and you're waiting till they're done, and then you're getting confirmation that you understand that. Once you do that, you should be able to put yourself in their shoes and understand what their motivations are and what they truly want. Sometimes what they say isn't really what they want, and it's unfortunate, but you have to deal with that. Now, then you say, is it okay if I give you my point of view? You want to have it already written down so it's clear, it's simple, and you can say your point. And then ask them to tell you what your point was. Because sometimes we don't communicate clearly and there's a misunderstanding. Oh, I thought that's what you wanted. Oh, no. So make sure to do that. And once that's all said, you should have all your pieces on the table, and then you can start proposing. What do you think about this solution? What do you think about that solution? At this point, they feel listened to, you feel listened to, you both understand where you guys are coming, you both understand what the problem is, you both understand what you want. So it's gonna be easier to come to a solution. There's gonna be trust, there's gonna be empathy, and that's gonna help just move this all along very nicely. Once you come to the solution, a lot of times it doesn't have to be a perfect solution. It could be an 80% good solution, and you don't have to be sure this is the best solution. As long as you're 51% sure that this is the best solution, then you move forward. And if you both feel like you're not going to get to 100% perfect, or you're not going to get to 100% sure this is the right decision, then you can move forward but just make sure that you communicate between you both. Okay, what are we agreeing to? Because a lot of times you say all these different things and you don't actually agree to the same thing. So make sure that you're both on the same page on what's agreed to. Um, After this is done, this is the third part, and many times this is the most important part. It's after decision made and you've seen what the outcome is, and you can reflect and you can see what you could have done better. You can learn from it, but most importantly is you want to let it go. It's like an emotion. You don't want to just dwell on that horrible mistake you did. You want to learn from it. You want to adjust in the future and then just let it go. Now, if you messed up and there's someone you need to apologize to and something you need to make right, then do it now. Don't wait. The faster you do it, the better it's going to be, and it's going to be easier. The longer you wait, it's going to be more difficult. Apologize to the person. Just say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. The emotions got the best of me." It doesn't have to be super profound. It doesn't have to be super complex. It's just a simple, "Hey, I shouldn't have said that thing. I'm really sorry. Let's start again." That's going to go a long way to maybe coming back to it. And that brings to the next point, which is sometimes you have to follow through. Sometimes there's extra steps. Sometimes there's things you didn't expect, and you have to come back to the table and you have to, adjust. Or you maybe just independently, you have to adjust the part of your action. But just make sure to communicate clearly so that people don't have misunderstanding. But like, hey, I'm going to have to change this because this didn't work out. It's an extra call. It's something simple, but it's better to communicate clearly. You don't want the other person to think you're trying to do something that isn't um, legitimate or isn't crystal clear in your communication and just and how you're dealing with things. You don't want to seem shady. It's going to put you back a lot. But again, don't regret this decision. You came to the decision. Don't be like it's your fault. You're the one who said it. No, you guys came to the decision together. And if it's a bad decision, then you're going to learn from it. You don't want to be placing blame. You don't. If they say it's your fault, it's fine. But you don't want to be going back and forth. Remember, what is the point of the conversation of this problem? What are you trying to get at as a solution? Who is the bottom line? What are you trying to do? And that goes to the same thing, follow up and having a follow up meeting, figuring out what you have to do more if that's what's needed. Now, again, this is an opportunity to plan, and next time you do, let's say you can't change it, it's just bad. You learn from that, and next time you have a conversation about a problem, you take that in consideration. What can you adapt in your process to not have that happen again? And then let it go. Don't focus on that. The main thing, and we'll have another video on it, is focus on your strengths. That's what makes you you, and that's what's going to make you shine. And then just focus enough on your weaknesses so that they don't drag you down. So you have to understand, is that a weakness? Do you have to invest a little bit so it doesn't keep hurting you badly? Or is it not a weakness and you don't have to worry about it because it's most likely not going to happen? Sometimes they're exceptional. Or is it a strength that you think that you just tripped up that time? So it is worth investing a lot of time. That's up to you. Now, all of this, it's very general, but if you follow it, it's a guide, and so it should help you figure out what you need to say and how you need to do it. It is probably one of the longer videos, but it's very complex. When you're dealing with other people, there's just so much to be misinterpreted, and my suggestion to you is always do it in person. If you can't do it in person, make sure there's a video at the very least, one-on-one. If you have multiple people, I don't suggest it. If there's no other way, then fine, but then have a follow-up meeting with each individual because you're going to miss things. It's going to be difficult to get everyone's input. But that's it. It's as simple as those three things. Plan for it, do it, and then reflect and figure out what you can do better. And that's pretty much conflict resolution in a nutshell. Thanks for watching. Follow us on social media. We're at Cultum Vita. It means cultivating life, and we're on Facebook, YouTube, most of the social media. And most importantly, if you think this could help somebody, forward it along. That's why I'm doing it. And thanks again.